Okay, the macarons are drying. It's time to make our buttercream. We're gonna make the buttercream and divide it into different bowls to make a few different flavors. Then we're gonna make some salted caramel, which I love because not only is it great for sandwiching between macarons, but it's delicious to eat with a spoon or over ice cream or with pie. In any case, let's go ahead and start with the buttercream. What you're gonna need are some egg whites, some sugar, and some butter, because all the greatest things in life are made with butter. And I like to add a little pinch of salt, you know, to balance out the sweetness. Make sure your butter is unsalted for this. So what I'm gonna do first is to take these egg whites here and place them in my KitchenAid bowl. If you're using a handheld mixer, go ahead and place your bowl directly over the double boiler and put your handheld mixer into the bowl and do this all in one step. Sugar. And I like this recipe because the sugar gets dissolved. Unlike many recipes where you're using just powdered sugar and butter, over time the sugar tends to crystallize and it gets crunchy. This is the smoothest buttercream you'll ever eat. It's the one I use to decorate cakes. It's just lovely. So I'm gonna take this bowl here that's got the sugar and the egg whites, and over the double boiler, I'm just gonna whisk it until I touch these egg whites and they feel hot to the touch. You don't have to be super fast with this. You want to keep this moving so you don't end up with a vanilla omelet later. And double boiling, really all it is getting a pot, filling it with water, letting it come to a simmer, and then just placing your bowl directly above it. This is just a much more gentle way of warming up the egg whites so they don't overcook. So here we go. My egg whites and sugar are nice and hot. The sugar's all dissolved in there. I'm going to turn my stove off here and move this over to the KitchenAid. Great, and I'm gonna beat it on high. I'm gonna beat these for about 1.5 minutes until this feels like it's room temperature again, and get my butter ready. I'm gonna add a little pinch of salt here. And I'm gonna wait until I get stiff peaks in here. What we're doing right now is incorporating a lot of air into here, so it's cooling this egg white and sugar mixture, this meringue. And once it's fully cooled, we can start to add our butter. If I add the butter right now, it's just gonna liquefy and be a big mess. So let's turn it all the way up and get our butter ready. My butter is already cut up into little pieces, which really helps it get to room temperature. And in a moment, when I can feel like this is room temperature, I'm going to add the butter in little pieces. So our egg whites are nice and stiff. Look at that, the meringue. And this feels like it's room temperature now. We're gonna turn it to medium speed now and slowly incorporate the butter. A few pieces at a time. There we go. Take a little dip in there. You want to make sure you're using unsalted butter for a few reasons. To begin with, salted butter differs in its amount of salt as the different seasons progress. So dairy farmers add different amounts of salt to their salted butter to control shipping and refrigeration. And it also has a longer shelf life. So salted butter isn't quite as fresh as unsalted butter. Sweet cream and unsalted butter are essentially the same thing. They're just unsalted. And I like to control exactly how much salt is in my recipes, so I like to use unsalted butter for that reason. If all you have at home is salted butter, don't worry about it. Just don't add salt to your recipe. And that goes for making cupcakes, pies, muffins, brownies, whatever. So, there we are, we're almost there. Once I've added all the butter in there, I'm going to turn it all the way up and get it nice and smooth. If your buttercream looks really curdled, it's usually because your butter was too cold. So I recommend picking up your bowl and warming it up over the double boiler just for a few seconds and then beating it some more. Don't worry if it looks curdled, it just means that the butter's too cold. If your buttercream is really runny, it just means everything was too warm. So just stick the bowl in the freezer for 20 minutes, bring it back out and re-whip it. So take a look at the buttercream. It's really smooth, but I want to make it even smoother. And this is a great tip when you're decorating cakes. If your buttercream looks like this, which is smooth, but looks like it has air pockets in it, all you need to do is to put the paddle attachment on or hit it with a wooden spoon and stir it real quickly, and it'll make it incredibly super smooth. Before we smooth out our buttercream, I want to add some vanilla bean to it. Remember that bean that you used to make the macarons? I hope you didn't throw it away because you can actually use it for your buttercream here. Remember this? We don't even need to scrape it anymore. We're gonna drop it in here and we're gonna keep beating it until the whisk releases the rest of the seeds, and then we'll fish it out later. It's a great way to reuse the bean. So the whisk is actually just moving that bean around, releasing the rest of the seeds. It's less waste. If you don't have a vanilla bean, that's okay. Just use some vanilla extract in here. All right. So to make this buttercream even smoother, we're going to switch to the paddle attachment. If you don't have the paddle attachment, just get a wooden spoon and really stir it up a little bit. And that'll punch out the rest of the air in the buttercream and make it very, very smooth. All right, I'm going to hit it with a paddle and watch this. Almost instantly, this buttercream smooths out. Great, look at that. I'm going to take this buttercream and split it into 3 different bowls to show you how to make 3 different flavors of buttercream just using this one base. We've got our plain buttercream, and I want you to be super creative with this and make it whatever you like. Today, we're going to make chocolate buttercream, raspberry buttercream, and vanilla buttercream, all with the same base that we already made. Not much more work to do. And the first thing we have to do is to melt our chocolate. So I'm going to take this bowl here. Got some little chocolate discs. We love Cordillera chocolate, which is a brand from Colombia, but really any great chocolate will do. If you're using milk chocolate, just know that it'll be a little bit more fluid buttercream than if you were to use dark, because there's more fat content in milk chocolate than there is in dark chocolate. So here I've got a 65%, and I'm going to place it here over the double boiler. If you're using a glass bowl like I am, make sure it's tempered glass so that it doesn't shatter. But you know, a metal bowl will do just fine. And I'm just going to place it on top of the double boiler here until it's melted. I hear a lot of times that, you know, double boilers ask for just a little bit of water in a pot and then in a bowl directly above it. The idea of a double boiler is to give it a really gentle, even heat. Steam from boiling water is hotter than the water itself. So having a little bit of water and a lot of steam and then a bowl is actually a lot harsher for what's in your bowl than if the water is gently touching it. So be careful when you're melting chocolate that water can't get into the bowl, because water and chocolate don't really like each other. But make sure also that there isn't a lot of space for steam. So I like just a gentle simmer, put the bowl over the double boiler, and just stir it till it's melted. So when you're melting chocolate, I want you to be really aware that chocolate is very sensitive to heat. So you want to move it around, and I like to kind of fold it over so that the bottom chocolate goes to the top and the top cooler chocolate goes down to the bottom. You should also know that chocolate kind of melts itself. So as the chocolate is melting, it'll kind of melt itself, and before the chocolate is completely melted, you'll pull it off the heat and just stir it till it works itself out. So right now, I'm just gonna keep melting it. Our chocolate has melted, so now we're just gonna let it cool for a few minutes, and while it's cooling, I'm gonna show you how to make the raspberry buttercream. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a little bit of our buttercream here and add it to some freeze-dried fruit. So this right here is freeze-dried raspberries. You can buy the freeze-dried fruit in the cereal aisle, typically of the supermarket, and it comes in everything from banana to mango to raspberry to blueberry, and it adds a lot of color and a lot of flavor. So here we go. I'm just gonna put a little bit of buttercream in there. And I'm going to stir it up all together. I like to crush them up a bit so I get a really pretty color on the buttercream. Our second flavor is the vanilla buttercream. I know we have some vanilla bean seeds in there from when we put in the vanilla bean earlier, but I want to pump it up with a little bit more vanilla flavor. So I'm going to grab this little bit of vanilla extract here and just put a tiny bit of it in there. Really important to make sure that you're buying extracts. Even if it says natural flavor, flavors are always artificial. So make sure that you buy extracts over flavors. There we go. So we've got raspberry buttercream, vanilla buttercream. Let's do the chocolate buttercream. It's my favorite. Let me check to make sure that the chocolate's cool enough. Oh well, it looks like I have to taste it. Yeah, that works. If the chocolate's too warm, what happens then is that it melts the buttercream and makes it a little too liquidy. So you need to make sure and do some quality control and ensure that the chocolate's not too hot, that it'll melt the butter. If it does, don't worry about it. Stick it in the refrigerator for a few minutes, then take it back out and re-whip it. But it's not the end of the world, and it's nice to be able to taste your chocolate. All right, so let's grab our buttercream, what's left of it. And I'm actually going to add only a little bit of this chocolate. What I like to do is to spread a little bit of the melted chocolate inside the macaron shell and then put some chocolate buttercream, so you get a little bit of a crunch from the chocolate that's just plain and melted, and then you get the smoothness of the chocolate buttercream. It's kind of like a chocolate double whammy. It's not such a terrible thing. So I'm going to add a little tiny bit of this melted chocolate here and just stir it in. The darker the chocolate you use, obviously the stiffer your buttercream will be, and the darker, more chocolatey flavor you'll get. Dark chocolate has a more intense chocolate flavor, so the darker chocolate you go, the more intense your buttercream will be. If you use a milk chocolate, it'll be sweeter and it'll also be runnier because there's more fat in milk chocolate. So do as you like now that you know how to choose between the two. I'm going to add a little bit more because I love some chocolate. There we are. If you wanted to make this mocha buttercream, just add a little bit of coffee to this. Coffee extract, a little bit of espresso, whatever you want to add to it. There we are. So we have our 3 different buttercream flavors. Let's go ahead and make our salted caramel. Then we'll bake off our cookies and assemble everything together.